Good morning, everyone, and thanks for waking up with me on Up with India. Today is Tuesday, October 27th, 2020, and here's your morning update. According to AP, police shot and killed a 27-year-old black man on a Philadelphia street Monday afternoon after yelling at him to drop his knife. The shooting occurred before 4 p.m. as officers responded to a report of a person with a weapon. Police spokesperson Tanya Little said officers were called to the Cobbs Creek neighborhood and encountered the man, later identified as Walter Wallace. Officers then fired several times, Little said. Wallace was allegedly shot at least 10 times and was hit in the shoulder and the chest. One of the officers then put him in a vehicle and drove him to a hospital where he was pronounced dead a short time later. Video of the fatal confrontation recorded by a bystander and posted on social media shows officers pointing their guns at Wallace as he walks in the street around a car. He walks toward the officers as they back away from him in the street, guns still aimed at him. They yell at him to put his knife down, and according to AP, both then fire several shots and Wallace collapses in the street. A woman believed to be Wallace's mother runs up to him screaming, and several bystanders then approach him. It is unclear in the video if he had a knife. The names of the officers who fired the shots were not immediately released. Both were wearing body cameras and were taken off street duty pending the investigation. A large crowd gathered where the man was killed, with video showing many yelling at the police officers and crying. Some people later spoke with City Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw, who arrived at the scene a short time after the shooting. Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw said in a statement, "I heard and felt the anger of the community," adding that the video raises many questions and that those questions will be fully addressed by the investigation. Fraternal Order of Police Lodge Number 5 President John McNesby expressed his support of the officers involved. More than 30 people have been arrested and at least 30 police officers have been injured as tensions erupted in West Philadelphia after Monday's night of unrest following the fatal shooting. More on this coming soon. In more news, according to Delaware Online, the 9-member Wilmington Housing Authority Board of Commissioners voted unanimously Monday night to express no confidence in the Public Housing Agency's director, John Hill. The vote, conducted on Zoom, came days after a meeting at one of the agency's low-income senior apartment high-rises, and that meeting resulted in a scuffle that saw one of Hill's housing officials charged with offensive touching for appearing to punch and shove 2 activists, including a senior tenant. Reportedly, activist Jeff Day and the tenant were also charged with offensive touching. Day took to Facebook last night to share his concerns. According to the News Journal, Board of Commissioners Chair James Spadola emphasized to the News Journal after the vote that no single issue led to this. He said the vote does not remove Hill, who was hired by the board in July of 2018 after a year-long national search, from his office. An executive committee of the board will meet with Hill to discuss an action plan and further steps. Spadola, who is also running for city council, declined to comment further on the personnel matter. Hill also declined to comment. Jian Kong goes on to report the resolution came to a vote after the board went into an hour-long executive session that was closed to the public. The document states that the board has become dissatisfied with the manner in which the executive director has conducted the affairs of the authority, and that the board believes that the executive director's relationship with the Board of Commissioners has become contentious and not in the best interest of the authority. After the vote, Hill objected to the resolution, saying he got no notice of any issues. The WHA Board of Commissioners is mostly appointed by Mayor Mike Przicki, with one commissioner appointed by Meyer and one by Governor John Carney. According to reports, during the meeting, Commissioners Vincent White and Steve Washington blasted Hill over the housing authority's coronavirus practices, taking issue with a lack of screening of employees for symptoms before coming to work, an apparent lack of notification to coworkers if an employee tests positive for the virus. White said the lack of notification is just not acceptable. Hill said there were privacy constraints and the decision was made on the advice of general counsel. Last week's incident at the Parkview Apartments was the second public complaint of a slow maintenance and repairs under Hill's leadership of WHA. Kong reports last year, several residents in Southbridge complained of persistent mold in their public housing units that they said housing officials dragged their feet to address. In local news, according to Delaware Online, Jeff Nieberg, the Newcastle County Council plans to discuss and vote on a plan to purchase the Sheraton Hotel on Airport Road and convert it into an emergency homeless shelter. The Sheraton Wilmington South, located just off exit 5A on I-95, is up for auction beginning Monday, according to a web listing. Bidding starts at $5.5 million. The auction ends Wednesday. The county wants to use funding from the more than $190 million it has in reserve allocation from the more than $322 million it received from the CARES Act during the coronavirus pandemic, according to an agenda posted for an upcoming meeting Tuesday night. Plans to purchase the hotel and operate it as emergency shelter and temporary housing for our most vulnerable residents and others as deemed necessary by the Department of Community Services during and in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The hotel, which just underwent a $6.4 million renovation, has 192 rooms and the property is more than 6 acres. It has a long history in Delaware despite being in operation for less than 10 years. The hotel was originally built for $25 million by principal developer Joseph L. Capano Sr. as a Radisson Hotel in 2000, but it sat empty for years after it was found to have been built in a floodplain, 1/3 larger than specified in its permits. A court battle ensued and the owners filed for bankruptcy in 2001. Pennsylvania-based Hersha Hospitality Management purchased the building for $15 million and converted it to a Sheraton. It opened in 2011. In local news, according to Delaware Online, Tarbiyah School, a small Islamic school, has served 1.3 million meals since March, serving from 5,000 to 7,000 meals a day. That's more than even Delaware's largest school districts. Every weekday, volunteers cart meals across Delaware, offering a hot meal to any child 18 and under who needs it, regardless if they attended the school. Amna Latif, director of Tarbiyah, oversees a team of about 150 staff and volunteers who help pull off the daily meal deliveries. She never thought it would grow to this. At the start of the pandemic, schools quickly needed to figure out how to continue feeding kids who relied on daily school lunches. When the U.S. Department of Agriculture allowed schools to shift to summer meal programs, Latif and her team jumped to action. Volunteers and staff members suggested neighborhoods and community centers where they knew children would need food. Friday, March 13th was the day Governor John Carney closed schools for 2 weeks. After a weekend filing applications with the Department of Education, Tarbiyah was serving meals by Monday. The school started with the goal of serving 1,800 meals per day, and soon the school was serving up to 7,000 meals daily, all reimbursed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The handful of distribution sites grew to 34 across northern Delaware, serving children in Newark, Wilmington, Newcastle, and as far south as Dover. The school has since scaled back to 13 distribution sites, turning some over to school districts needing to keep school nutrition staff employed through virtual learning. In more news, according to WHYY, election interference has been an important topic surrounding this year's election. WHYY Mark Eichmann reports more email attacks could be coming, according to Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe and FBI Director Christopher Wray, who sounded the warning after announcing Iran and Russia had acquired data on U.S. voters days before that threat was announced. Delaware Governor John Carney issued an executive order authorizing the Delaware National Guard Cybersecurity Squadron to help fend off possible digital attacks against the state. The National Guard is helping the State Department of Technology and Information stay on guard if and when those attacks happen. The Guard helped out in a more limited role in the 2018 election, but had less involvement because there was no executive order authorizing it to act. Though the state is using new voting machines for this year's election, they are not connected to the internet and are less vulnerable to attack than the Department of Elections website or the state's main site. Jason Clark, the state's acting chief information officer, said that they are confident that they are leveraging all avenues of support that they have here in the state of Delaware to ensure a secure election. What are your thoughts on today's news? Don't forget to like and share on Facebook and Instagram at WITN22Wilm. Thank you so much for waking up with me on Up with India. For more news, updates, and information, follow us on social media at WITN22Wilm.